Hassan Nasrallah saying no place in Israel would be safe in the event of all-out war.
If war is imposed on Lebanon, the resistance will fight without restraints, without rules, and without limits. The enemy knows very well that we have prepared ourselves for the worst and most difficult days, and the enemy knows very well what awaits it. And that is why it was deterred for 9 months.
His televised speech focused on what he says is the group's expanded military and intelligence capabilities. Now, this followed Hezbollah's release of that purported drone video showing Israeli military and civilian sites in northern Israel. Israel responding that Hezbollah would be destroyed in an all-out war. Ben Wiedemann joining us from Beirut. Nasrallah also had a pointed warning for the Republic of Cyprus, Ben, saying it would be targeted if it allows Israeli forces to use its military bases or airports. Of course, Cyprus has held joint military drills with Israel several times over the past decade. What's going on here?
Well, this reference to Cyprus really came out of the blue. You know, we monitor Hezbollah media channels very closely, and there was no hint that this was coming. But clearly they are concerned, given the growing military ties between Israel and Cyprus, that somehow Israel will use Cyprus's airports or bases, as he said, to launch attacks on Lebanon, and particularly Hezbollah. So he issued this rather surprising warning against Cyprus. Now, the response of the Cypriots was that, for instance, the president yesterday came out and said this was not a pleasant remark coming from Nasrallah, and that he insisted that Cyprus wants no part in any war or conflict, as he said. And we heard also from a spokesman for the Cypriot government this morning saying that that Cypriot territory would not be used in any military activity if it comes to a war. But clearly Hezbollah is concerned not only about what could come from the south, but also clearly what might come from the west as well. Becky?
Ben, the Cypriot president, as you rightly pointed out, has responded. Very specifically, he said, what I have to respond to is that the Republic of Cyprus is in no way involved in the war conflicts. The Republic of Cyprus is not part of the problem, he said. The Republic of Cyprus is part of the solution. And our role in this, as demonstrated, for example, through the humanitarian corridor. He's talking there about the maritime corridor between Cyprus and Gaza, is recognised not only by the Arab world, but by the international community as a whole. So I think it's important that we just explain for the viewers what role Cyprus has had over the course of this war and how they have been involved.
Well, certainly they were a sort of a transit point for humanitarian goods headed to that rather ill-fated, or so far not very successful, U.S. pier that cost U.S. taxpayers $340 million to bring in humanitarian goods to Gaza, and also that includes the participation of 1,000 U.S. service people as well. Now, Cyprus is in an interesting position. I recall during the 70s and 80s, it did not have very good relationship with Israel. In fact, there was a case where the Cypriot authorities arrested several Israelis who they believed were involved in sabotage or attempts to assassinate Palestinian members of the PLO at the time. But as a result of the deterioration of Israeli-Turkish relations going back to the 2010 Mavi Marmara incident, where Israeli commandos boarded a Turkish ship that was headed to Gaza, killing several people on board that ship, those relations have deteriorated, keeping in mind, of course, that Turkey essentially has controlled the northern part of Cyprus since 1975. So essentially, the Cypriot government is looking at it as, you know, the enemy of our enemy is our friend. All very complicated in a very Middle Eastern sort of way, but that sort of puts Cyprus on the map in terms of where they stand at the moment regarding the tensions between Lebanon and Israel. Becky?
You're right to point out that this is a multi-layered conflict, and of course Israel warning of the prospect of all-out war after Hezbollah published purported drone footage of civilian and military installations in Israel. Hezbollah, of course, has said that their efforts against Israel will continue as long as the Israel-Hamas war continues, as long as the conflict in Gaza continues. Ben, thank you, and that does continue. The Rafah crossing between Israel and Egypt has been a vital point for aid into Gaza, of course. Now, new video and satellite images reviewed by CNN show the passenger terminal on the Gaza side has been burned and severely damaged. The Israeli military conducted significant bulldozing and clearing at the terminal earlier this month, causing more destruction to a main building already damaged by fire in late May.